Brian Robinson.
Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. It was the spring of 1989 at Oklahoma State University. And if you were standing next to me at one of my favorite bars, you could feel the loud music pumping. You would see frat boys chugging beer, and you would hear these words. Hey y'all, Booger is mine. I was Booger. You wanted a round of drinks, Corona, Coors Light, maybe a shot of Jägermeister. Hey, the drinks are on me. Why? Because I just got my first credit card. Man, I was spending money like crazy. I had no idea if it had a limit or not. I looked like Donny Osmond, and I was spending like Donald Trump. And so I went up to the bar, I gave it to them, and they told me that it had been declined. I called the bank, and they said something about non-payment. I almost started to cry until I realized I had another credit card ready to go. Now, raise your hands if you've ever had a problem that you have avoided before. We all have. Well, one of the big problems that I had for many years was borrowing money and credit cards. Now, what happened after college was that I had a number of different jobs over the years. And usually I would work somewhere, I would change positions, and whenever money got tight, there might be gaps of time, 3 to 6 months. Instead of sitting down and working out a tight budget or getting a higher paying job, I borrowed money on credit cards. I got a loan once from Citibank, and I borrowed from friends and family. And over time, I was able to make the payments. But eventually, it got pretty crazy. I would rob from Peter to pay Paul. Then Peter went broke. Then Paul went broke. And then it got really bad. Every day I'd come home, and the mailbox would be stuffed with bills I couldn't pay. Every phone call was from a bill collector or one of my friends asking for their money. One day, there was an eviction notice slapped on my front door for everyone to see. But the worst? Over the years, I had convinced my mom to co-sign on some credit cards for me. Now, my mom was a retired school teacher. She has gray hair. She had got through a tough divorce and survived ovarian cancer. And she would always call me. Hey, sweetheart, I'm just calling to check. Are you able to make the payments? And I would say, yeah, Mom, I've been able to make the payments. I couldn't make the payments. She had to declare bankruptcy. And it was my fault. I remember sitting in the attorney's office and watching my mother's face as she signed the paperwork. It was devastating. How do you fix a problem? Well, that answer came to me a few weeks later from a very unlikely source. I was actually working not too far away from here at a fashion firm, and I was down to my last few dollars, and I saw one of my co-workers, and I went to him and asked if I could borrow a few dollars. It was my friend Don, and Don had this bright red hair, these big holes in his ears, and these tattoos on his forearms. And Don said to me, Brian, I'm a recovering drug addict, and I see a problem when it hits me in the face. And what he said next to me, I'll never forget, and I hope you won't either. He said, you need to face it to fix it. Face it to fix it. And he handed me a sheet of paper which had written on it, Debtors Anonymous, with the address of a church on 5th Avenue. A week later, I found myself in a church basement with 50 to 60 people sitting in folding chairs. It was quiet, and you could smell this burned coffee. A woman began to share about how credit cards had ruined her life. And after 10 minutes of sitting there, I took off. I did not want to hear it. But a week later, I had to face it. I returned to the meetings, and over the next 4 to 5 years, I attended 4 to 5 meetings a week. I eventually cut up my credit cards, and that was hard. I went through the big pile of all those bills and began to make credit arrangements. And I even began to make payments to my mom of $300 a month to go towards her second mortgage for years. Now, there was a creative side to it. Whenever I had a hot date, it was, I'd like to get to know you better. Let's go to Central Park. It was free. And if I made it to a second date, I would maybe splurge and I'd say, let's go to Starbucks. I ate a lot of bean and spaghetti dinners, and I never took taxis, always the subway. Eventually, I finally became debt-free. Ladies and gentlemen, what problem are you avoiding? You see, sometimes we start off with a problem, and it starts so small. But over time, it just continues to expand the longer we avoid it. But when you face your problems with courage, hard work, and honesty, you will find strength, confidence, and freedom. What problem do you need to face today? Is it a health issue? Face it. Is it a conversation you need to have? Face it. Is it something at your job? Face it. If you face it, you can fix it. Mr. Contest Chair.
Woo! Thank you, Bishop. And before I call on our third contestant, let's